sometimes justice appears in the form of law. A Cuban family who claimed to be heroic dissidents left Cuba with a cooperation between the Socialist Party in Spain, the Catholic Church. So they went over there and they got benefits, assistance, and all of that stuff for being heroic dissidents against the Cuban government. And they disagreed with the gains that were made by the Cuban Revolution. Guess what? Now those people are homeless. Now in November that year, crisis hit Spain, and the popular right-wing populist party got in and put through a tremendous amount of austerity, which is, well, what right-wingers do, what capitalism does, austerity. Now those people have been evicted from their homes because they could no longer afford to keep it. So that family is now out on the street as a result of austerity, as a result of capitalism. Now here's some more information about what happened in an article by the website In Defense of Marxism. In July last year, they stopped paying their rent of 400 euros a month. And then from September, they could no longer afford to pay for electricity or water. At the end of the special government subsidies, the exiles had to rely on charity aid from the Red Cross and Caritas. But even that had dried up. On May 7, the police arrived at their flat with the intention of enforcing an eviction order for the non-payment of rent. Evictions and repossession of homes have reached epidemic proportions in Spain as a result of the capitalist crisis. In dozens of cities and towns across the country, people have organized anti-eviction campaigns and are using all means at their disposal to highlight the issue and resist evictions and repossessions. Now that same family is asking to return to Cuba, where they will be able to find work and a place to live, which they cannot find in capitalist Spain because of the ongoing crisis of capitalism. In fact, one of the members of the family said, if we had been told in Cuba what was going on in Spain, we would never have made the move. Well, actually, that information was available. Partly. I mean, nobody knew about the crisis at that time. People knew crisis was coming, but they didn't know exactly what was going to happen. I laugh at the irony of this whole situation. They left Cuba because they disagreed with what it is that the Cuban Revolution brought. So now they got a real lesson in what capitalism is and so-called Western democracy. One of the first aims of the Cuban Revolution was to halt all evictions that were happening. And the irony here is that they have been evicted from their home because of it. And they're no longer being given free handouts by the government for being heroic dissidents against the supposedly evil Cuba. And now here they are, begging with their hands out to come back to the people that they said were so awful and so terrible. Another thing this situation proves is that the crisis of housing can never be solved by capitalism. It's a literal impossibility. The money necessary for every single person to have a place to live literally does not exist and cannot exist under capitalism. Distribution of housing according to income cannot actually solve the problem. There's the recent study that said there were 4 unoccupied homes for every homeless person or homeless family. There was 4 empty dwellings for every homeless person in the United States. Literally, capitalism cannot provide a solution to housing. And what's their first instinct? To go to a socialist country where housing is a guaranteed right, where they actually would find housing and actually would find work, because Cuba's unemployment rate, I believe, is about 1.5% to 2%, as opposed to Spain, where it's quickly approaching 30%. The crisis of capitalism has certainly woken this family up to the reality of what it is that they were rebelling against and what it is that they were supposedly running to. They probably believed that it was this great paradise of freedom and democracy, and turned out it was nothing like that. And now here they are, begging with their hands out to come back to the land where they were from, where these things that they can't find there were guaranteed rights to them.